Welcome back for another video. Every season an 8-digit number of FPL teams are entered with one goal: to win Fantasy Premier League. It is the most exclusive club and it's almost impossibly difficult. So few have ever done it. So what's the secret? How do you win FPL? I spoke to the greatest FPL managers that have ever played the game and a number of FPL world champions to bring you the best advice you'll ever get in one video, guaranteed. So make sure you lock in for this one. Everyone can have the season of their lives, but there are some elite managers that have consistently gotten somewhat close to winning. So what can we learn from those that repeatedly come close and combine that with the advice from champions for that extra 10% we're missing? So each of these guys are going to take 2 minutes of your time to lay it all out. Make sure you hit subscribe for more FPL content like this. Let's begin. 11FI is the #1 manager in the world over the last 4 years. His average finish over that time is 1k. You know, on your FPL profile it says your percent finish. This guy is sitting on literally straight 0.0%. They need another decimal place for this guy's ranks to make sense. Here's what he had to say to you. Thinking in probabilities. FPL forces you to make decisions under uncertainty. You can't find certainty by delaying, procrastinating or hedging. Every week you have to commit to a choice before the deadline. This trains a particular kind of thinking that is enormously helpful in life. Thinking probabilistically. You have to get comfortable assigning rough probabilities to uncertain outcomes. This forces you to be explicit about what you actually believe and how confident you are. What is the likelihood something will happen and how big will that impact be? FPL punishes thinking in binary terms. The best decision makers are those who learn to deal with uncertainty properly. To think in distributions rather than outcomes. To make decisions that are right in expectation even when they won't always pay off individually. Having good predictive data sets can sometimes give us a false sense of certainty. You still have to think about your decision. Learning to think probabilistically about your decisions is an entirely separate skill from having good data models. This isn't only about player or team forecast, but also about your general strategy when playing FPL. Think about what you want to achieve and analyse whether the likelihood of your actions are actually moving you closer to that. You're trying to make a forecast of all the relevant things that might happen. You want this picture of the world to be as accurate as possible and update this as new information comes in. 11FI actually publishes his own data free on his website, so I'll link that below as well. Joshua Ball is an FPL world champion and mathematician. The power of stats. Some general tips: have fun, take risks, captain that Brighton defender and bring in that crazy differential. You are meant to enjoy playing. At the end of the day, it is just a game. If you feel like FPL is affecting your mental health, then first of all take some time away. You always need luck to win. The skill is in putting yourself in the best position to be lucky. The best tool we have to do this is stats. They're the least biased way of comparing players and making decisions. That doesn't make them perfect, and people can always cherry pick stats to support a pre-existing narrative, so be careful. That includes fooling ourselves into pretending our decisions are based on evidence and not the other way around. Don't be afraid to recognise that your own picks are biased or not working out and then change them. Recognising that you've made a mistake, backing your favourite player or ignoring a popular choice and correcting it is better than doubling down. I'd be lying if I said you don't need to get very lucky to win it all, but obviously if you don't play well, luck is only going to take you so far. I think most people who take FPL seriously are spending a fair chunk of time thinking about it, but I've found that the more time I spend weighing up all the possible options, the better I do. A lot of that time is collecting every tidbit of information I can get my hands on, in the hopes that it makes it clearer what the best long-term option is. Disclaimer, please don't spend literally all your time thinking about FPL in the hopes of winning a stress ball. At the end of the day, it's only a game. You can quite literally count on one hand the managers around the world that have 10 top 10Ks. Tariq Balbar or FPL Egypt is one of them. It's difficult to articulate just how insane finishing in the top 10,000 out of millions of managers 10 times is. The no-nonsense strategy. I've been playing FPL for more than 20 years now, mainly since the 2005-06 season. And when I come to think about it, there is nothing really special to my FPL recipe which led to achieving 10 top 10k finishes. Nevertheless, I'll still walk you through it. Every season I try to do my FPL homework. I do a lot of research and I read a lot of FPL content. I also watch a lot of games, so my picks are based on the research and confirmed by the eye test. As Fantasy Football Scout Joe describes it, I'm an FPL dullard. I trust my gut and I go with the best picks from my point of view, regardless of whether they're differential or not. I always select the best captain option, and I rarely go with a risky pick as long as I'm convinced. I remember one time Kane was home to Burnley, if I recall correctly, and Saka had an easy home game. Almost every man and his dog went with Kane captain, and I was not convinced. I went with Saka captain and he scored 18 points while Kane blanked. As I mentioned, I was not trying to be smart or take risks. I just went with the best pick from my point of view, regardless of the others. Also, I'm never afraid of taking hits, and I used to take maybe 10 to 16 hits per year. But lately I've become much more conservative in the last 2 seasons. Maybe I took around 4 or 5 hits. I always go with the cheap keepers to try and spend 8.5 mil max. I always captain midfielder or an attacker, except for Duncan Gabriel in years gone by, whom both failed miserably in past seasons. I rarely have a good bench. I try to squeeze every penny into my starting 11, which helps by limiting the number of decisions I have to take weekly to just the captain and the transfers with minimal bench headaches. That's about it. I know it sounds boring and nothing special about it, but thank God it just works for me. As I always say, FPL is 60% luck and the rest is your research and talent. Ben Crabtree took high variance to the absolute extreme. This shouldn't have worked, but it did. He won FPL by intentionally avoiding Liverpool players all 38 game weeks as an Everton fan. Winning FPL. To win it, you need a lot of captain points. Around 80% of the captain picks will be quite obvious, with just 1 or 2 realistic options. However, occasionally there's an opportunity to captain someone low owned. These are the ones that make the difference. This could be a proven premium player coming back from an injury with a good home fixture, or a mid-table form player going up against a team who are about to sack their manager. It's best not to try and force a differential pick, but keep an eye open for the opportunities when the obvious options only have a mediocre fixture. For transfers, I think a few basic rules can help. Look to transfer players you'll keep for a minimum of 4 weeks, even if they blank after 1 or 2 weeks. If we're really torn between 2 players, go for the cheaper option. The extra money could be very welcome in a week or 2. If you're really struggling to decide, often making no transfer is best. You're better positioned for the following week with the transfer banked. And even if your players have tough fixtures, players do still pick up points in hard games, so you can end up pleasantly surprised. Don't be too differential. Getting a haul from a lowly owned player is fantastic, but if you look for this every transfer, you'll fail more often than not. Concentrating on maximising your own team's total points is a much more useful way of spending decision-making time instead of factoring in if other teams have or don't have certain players. Dan Wright has got 6 top 10Ks, and that's in recent years, 4 in the last 6 years, and he's another one with a bunch of 0.0% finishes because he's that good. Maximising your start. One of my main pieces of advice ahead of the new season is to maintain squad flexibility as much as possible, particularly going into Game Week 1. Try to avoid having too many budget enablers such that it's difficult to redress the squad imbalance if you start the season poorly, and or need to react to early market trends, for example, which can force you into multiple early transfers and or an early wildcard. Instead, I'd advise setting your squad up so you can get to any player in no more than 2 to 3 moves where possible. Similarly, I wouldn't take too many punts to start the season. Aim for a core of 12 to 13 players with a proven FPL track record and go for a couple of targeted differentials at most. It's also important to recognise when a player pick isn't working out and move them on as soon as possible, rather than forcing the issue and trying to make it work, even if it means reversing a previous decision or transfer. My other top tip is to play it safe with captaincy. Going with a differential captain can pay dividends, particularly in game weeks where there isn't a standout pick, and in those cases it can definitely be worth taking a calculated risk. However, doing it on a regular basis isn't usually successful, and it can lead to significant rank losses if a template captain does well. Jonas Låbakk is a recent world champion, the most notable analytical manager to win it all. Fixtures over form. Plan ahead. Map out a flexible 4 to 6 week horizon so your team naturally can handle fixture swings and chip strategy without taking unnecessary hits. You may lock in your plans early, but more often than not, I'd wait for as long as possible for potential leaks and injury news before you make your transfers. Fixtures over form. Short-term form can just be positive variance, but behind there can often be under average underlying stats. Upcoming fixture difficulty and expected minutes is what I would look at. Respect the template. You don't need wild differential punts or high risk captains to win. The core template exists because usually it's got the most expected value. Making the small calculated risks is where the main edge may be. Optimizing structure. Your squad layout dictates your long-term success far more than any single transfer. Maintain flexible price points, like keeping a balanced mix of premium, enablers and more mid-tier players. This is so you can easily pivot to emerging value options in 1 to 2 transfers without taking hits. William Johansson is on a generational run since he started playing 7 years ago. Recently he's come 922nd, 3k, 5k and 5k again. He's got an average finish over the last 6 years of top 0.08%. Finding your edge. My approach to FPL is built around maximising my chances of long-term success rather than chasing short-term outcomes. Some people may find this approach boring, as it often means making the obvious or less exciting move, but I believe it's the most effective way to achieve consistent results. More often than not, the boring picks are simply the players with penalties, set pieces, secure minutes and consistent involvement, and that's great. Over the course of a season, I believe those qualities will usually outperform a flashy winger capable of spectacular returns but with a much lower floor. Rather than chasing points from the previous game week, I focus on identifying where the best long-term opportunities lie and making decisions that I believe will be rewarded over time. However, I don't rely solely on the data. I combine statistics with watching matches to build my own opinions, especially when faced with close 50-50 decisions where the available information doesn't clearly separate two options. I spend far more time trying to identify sustainable edges than reacting to recent FPL points, always asking whether a player's long-term outlook has genuinely changed rather than simply responding to recent returns. Rather than planning transfers just 1 or 2 game weeks ahead, I build multiple transfer paths based on the different scenarios I believe are most likely to unfold. These scenarios account for injuries, rotation, and evolving information throughout the week. I continuously update my assumptions as new information becomes available, allowing me to pivot between plans while still maintaining a sustainable long-term strategy. One principle I always keep in mind is that the real edge isn't necessarily getting every 50-50 decision right, it's making sure the decision is between the two strongest options in the first place. If your process consistently narrows the pool to the best candidates, the outcome of an individual 50-50 becomes far less important over the course of a season. Risk management is a fundamental part of my decision making. I constantly evaluate whether protecting rank or increasing upside offers the better long-term play, taking effective ownership and projected captaincy into account. The introduction of defensive contributions has also changed how I evaluate defenders. I'm now much more comfortable backing elite defenders, even in difficult fixtures, as their higher floor means they can still deliver a solid 3 to 4 point returns without requiring a clean sheet. Every differential needs to justify its inclusion through expectation rather than uniqueness, and every popular pick needs to earn its place independently of ownership. Future flexibility is considered alongside immediate expected points, ensuring that each decision strengthens both my current position and my ability to capitalise on future opportunities. Overall, I believe FPL is a game of decision making rather than outcomes. Football's unpredictable, but by consistently making well-informed, data-driven decisions, I give myself the best chance of achieving strong, long-term results. And lastly, Simon Marsh, you could argue, is actually the greatest manager of all time, boasting a couple of top 5k and a couple of top 10k finishes, but he's also actually gone on to win it all as well. World champion. Luck and consistency. Consistency is the best differential. Consistency is the best differential in FPL because it's the hardest thing to achieve. Ultimately, if you average around 65 points per game week, you'll have a great rank at the end of the season, and it won't matter who or where those points come from. Once you frame things in this way and make consistency your goal, it removes a lot of the noise and the game becomes a lot simpler. FPL is a game you play against yourself. There's plenty going on under the surface when we make FPL decisions, and we have a lot of subconsciousness and cognitive biases subtly influencing our thought processes. Loss aversions, FOMO, confirmation bias, sunk cost fallacy, gambler's fallacy, it's a long list. But getting to know these biases and finding ways to manage them can make a huge difference to your game. Low risk, high reward. Luck is a part of FPL and you need to find ways to try and make it work for you. I tend to be fairly risk averse most of the season, but I'm always on the lookout for low risk, high reward opportunities, moves that have low risk of failure but have high potential payoff. You typically only get a handful of these each season, moments where everyone seems to be going one way but the better option actually seems to be the other way, or you somehow find yourself with an advantage that most people don't have. These are like getting a big hand in poker, and I try and go after these as hard as possible when they appear. Huge thank you to these managers for taking the time to share their insight. Links to all their profiles are down in the description. Hit subscribe for more FPL content like this. I'll see you soon for the next one.